Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Cott. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports Ryan McDonald. Ryan, how's it going?
Fantastic, Dan. How are you, my friend?
Very good, thanks. And I'm all the better because we're also joined by the one and only Tam McManus. Tam, good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you.
How's it going? Everything good?
Everything's good, mate. I'm looking forward to hopefully a good result for Hibs and Aberdeen tonight. To repair a bit of faith in Scottish football after the last couple of nights.
I was going
to say that. It's been a pretty miserable week so far for Scottish teams in Europe. But I feel like I don't want to jinx it, but I've got a good feeling, Tam, that Hibs are going to restore my faith in Scottish football tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I think if they play the way they've played in the last couple of rounds, they'll get every opportunity. I don't see Legia Warsaw being better than Midtjylland, probably maybe better than Partizan Belgrade too. Second leg looked a handy outfit as well. So, Listen, full house again at Easter Road. Listen, it's do or die now. You know, they're in their second chance. Obviously, after going out the Europa League, they're in the conference now. They're two games away for getting into the group stage. So they've just got to give it everything they've got at Easter Road tonight. And I think they've got to take a lead over to Poland next week, and hopefully they can do that tonight.
See, I think Legia Warsaw, the name, when I first saw that come out, I thought it's a really tricky draw. But I mean, they lost 5-3 in aggregate to AEK Larnaca, obviously in the Europa qualifying. Came fifth in the Polish league last year. I mean, there's no reason, as you say, why Hibs shouldn't. I don't want to say expect to win, but Hibs should be looking at the group stages, I think.
I think so. I think you look at some of the teams that are in there and in there every year. You get Shamrock Rovers, Larne, teams like that who obviously aren't any bigger than teams like Hibs. So there's a real opportunity for Hibs to get into the group stages. And listen, I think that might affect their league form domestically, because I think it's difficult for clubs like Hibs, Aberdeen, maybe Hearts to really compete on two fronts, play Thursday, Sunday. But the money that comes with it, you've seen Aberdeen and Hearts in recent years, £6-7 million. It really lets you strengthen your team on and off the pitch. So, and with Hibs posting alarming losses in the last couple of years, it gives the Gordons an opportunity to get some dough back as well, to be honest.
Absolutely. The one thing as well that I wanted to get your take on as a former attacker, Kieran Bowie. I'm now kind of tuning into Hibs games, really excited to see him play. And if he can even come close to replicating that goal last week, I mean, what a goal that was.
Yeah, listen, he's a player that I've always liked. When Hibs signed him, unfortunately for him, he got injured for Scotland under 21s just when he signed from Fulham. So he never really had an opportunity to go and get a real run of games. But he's got everything you're looking for in a striker. He's powerful, he's tall, he's decent in the air, he holds the ball up really, really well. He's got a great left foot, and he can run in behind. So usually you get two or three of those things, but he's got everything for me. He just needs to keep fit. Get a run of games at Hibs, keep getting stronger. And listen, not only for Hibs, but for Scotland. We've got a couple of big games coming up as well. So then that number 9 jersey's, I think, it's vacant at the minute. I don't think there's any outstanding candidate for Scotland for number 9. So over these two games, high-profile games, and if he can do the business again, then I think he'll definitely be in the squad, Steve Clarke's squad. But if he does well in these two games, he might be in the team.
I was going to say that, Tam. Like, I know we're talking about Hibs, but he's got to start those friendlies, at least one of them, surely.
Yeah, listen, I think that he's got to be in Steve Clarke's mind for the next couple of games coming up. He's fit, he's firing, he's playing well. Lyndon Dykes not really playing at Birmingham. Shankland, I don't think he can play as that lone striker. So apart from that, George Hurst, the boy at Ipswich, maybe. Apart from that, you're scratching your head on who's going to play for Scotland in that number 9 jersey. So, as I said, if Bowie just keeps his form up, keeps fit, then I think he'll play for Scotland in the next couple of games.
The other one, Tam, that I wanted to give a bit of praise to, the other Hibs player, Rocky Bushiri, because, look, I make no apologies about it. I thought at one point he was nothing short of a bomb scare. But watching him last week against Partizan, he's an absolute colossus for Hearts now. For Hibs. Gonna get slaughtered for that. He's an absolute colossus for Hibs. And he's a mainstay in the team now.
Yeah, it's been some redemption arc for Rocky Bushiri. Listen, I'm not going to lie, I'm probably the same as you, mate. He would be brilliant for 89 minutes and then just switch off and bang, it was a goal. I remember, was it Iggy scored a hat-trick at Rangers and he terrorised them that day. And he made a mistake towards the end that nearly cost Hibs a point as well. So, yeah, I think but a lot of the Hibs fans this time last year would have been quite happy to see the back of him, to be honest. But ever since he scored that last-minute goal against Aberdeen in the 3-each draw, not only his fortunes have changed, but Hibs' fortunes have changed. You know, I think that probably kept David Gray in a job, to be honest with you. I think he was running out of time. And ever since then, the second half of last season and the start of this season, he's been absolutely brilliant. Deserved his new deal. And from somebody that the Hibs fans had their fingers over their eyes at times at Easter Road, he's now somebody they're singing their name every week. So it's been amazing for him, and fair play to him for showing the character to get through it.
We've had Harry's written in, and I should say, if you're watching at home, you want to get involved in the conversation, please hit us with your comments. We'll try and read them out. Harry says, I've got every faith in us beating Warsaw tonight and getting past them over 2 legs. The turnaround under David Gray has been miraculous, and let's see how far we can go in Europe. I mean, you've kind of said it already, Tam, but it is remarkable how David Gray's managed to turn it around after such a woeful start, really.
Yeah, listen, I don't think he was that far away. I think if you'd have looked at the games over that period, the start of last season where Hibs were bottom of the league, I think there was just certain points in games, whether that had been a goalkeeping mistake, Rocky Bushiri switching off, a red card. And, you know, having spoke to people that were close to David Gray, I think that the board, you know, they used a lot of the XG, they used a lot of the stats, and I think they said to themselves, listen, we're not getting battered in games. It's just these individual errors that are costing us. Let's just stick with the manager. And thankfully they've done that, because any other time, I think they'd get sacked, to be honest. I think that the fact that Nick Montgomery, Sean Maloney, Lee Johnson, all these guys had came in quick succession helped them, because, listen, you can't keep hiring and firing managers, because eventually they're going to start pointing the finger at you, whether that was Ben Kensel or Malky Mackay. You know, so I think they stuck with him. I'm glad they did that. I'm sure all the Hibs fans are glad they did as well. And it helped him that he was obviously a club legend as well. Yeah. So, no, I'm delighted for him. He comes across as a really level-headed guy and knows his stuff. I think his 2 European performances in Denmark and in Belgrade have been outstanding. You know, unbeaten in the 2 away games. So he knows he's getting a tune out of them in Europe as well.
I'm conscious, Tam, we'll need to let you go in a wee minute or two. But before I do, I mean, it got a wee bit ropey against Partizan at Easter Road last week, but they came through that. What is your prediction for tonight's game?
Yeah, I'm going to go for 2-1 to Hibs. I think that they're capable of beating Legia Warsaw. I look at the strength and depth of Hibs now as well. You know, they made 6 changes at the weekend against Livingston. A game that I thought, this could be a real banana skin. Livingston started the season
I thought that as well, Tom. I really thought.
Yeah.
I thought Livingston would win that, but
yeah, they've started really well, and Hibs made 5 or 6 changes and rotated the squad, and they won the game comfortably. So you've got the new boy Legia come on and played really well and scored. Grant Hanley at the back came in, clean sheet. The goalkeeper came in. The goalkeeper Salinger came in, clean sheet. So all of a sudden he's got a real headache, but it's a good headache for any manager. You want to have good players in every position, and you want to be leaving good players out. So I'm going to go for 2-1 to Hibs, and I really fancy Hibs to get through this tie and get into the group stages.
Ryan, before I let Tam go, what's your prediction? What are you giving it?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it'll be 2-1 to the Hibs. I think Kieran Bowie will get the winner. Like Tam says, it'll be a sold-out crowd. It's a bit of a kind of roles reversed this tie. Obviously, they won 2-0 away in the first leg in Partizan, and then just got through last week. So, yeah, hopefully get the job done. It's a step up in opposition, but I really fancy the Highbees to do it.
Listen, guys, great predictions, but you're wrong. 3-0 Hibs. Rocky Bushiri first goal. There you go. You can take that to the bank.
I hope you're right, by the way.
Listen, not many of them come true, Tam, but I've got a good feeling about this one.
Right, if it's 3-0, see all that drink behind me in the corner there? If it's 3-0, I'll tan all that before I come on the next show.
Excellent, that sounds like a deal to me. Tam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I hope it's an absolute cracker for you tonight.
Right, cheers, guys.
Cheers, Tam. All the best. Tam McManus there, and as I say, Ryan, I hope it's an absolute cracker. But we have to talk about Celtic. That's the big news today. Before we actually get stuck into it, I think we can hear a little bit from Brendan Rodgers in his post-match press conference. So let's hear what he had to say.
Well, disappointed with the result in the first half performance. We didn't start with the intent and the mentality that we wanted to. We were quite passive and weren't moving as a team as well as what we would like. So the second half was better. Started the second half well, and but just couldn't quite find the breakthrough in the final third of the pitch.
The fans were pretty vocal at the end in their displeasure, the disappointment. Is that a justifiable reaction in your view?
Well, listen, what I do know is over many years, sack the board normally means sack the manager. It's normally the manager that goes when that starts to be sung. But no, listen, I think I can only really look at the players that we have here and the performance. We've known for a long time what we've needed as a squad, so I don't want to go into that. I can only concentrate on what we have here. Of course, at the end of the game, we're having to shuffle things about to try and make it work and play players out of position. But the players' endeavour in the second half was really good. But at this level, it's more than that. So hopefully we can show that. The boys are a great bunch of lads. They're really honest. They've started the season well. Defensively, have been strong. But tonight, offensively, we just couldn't show those moments of quality to break through.
Brendan, given that frustration in the stands, is that something you don't want to fester? What needs to happen on and off the field to make sure that doesn't fester and the frustration doesn't build?
Well, I think that we need to improve the squad. There's clarity around that for a long time, and so we see that, and I think supporters see that. We certainly do in football. We need to improve. So, and then from that, this is a performance club. This is a club that's to perform, and that starts on the field. And you do that with getting the very best players you possibly can to allow you to perform. So it's getting performance on the pitch, style and a type of football that excites supporters, and that's what this club is used to. So we know that, and hopefully between now and the end of the window we can get that, and then that'll support us going through the rest of the season.
But you knew you had this game, Brendan. Does that add to the frustration that this was always potentially going to be a tough tie, whoever you got, and maybe being in a better place going into it?
Yeah, but I can't answer that because it's not my decision in the end. I can prepare the team with the staff, and the players that are here have been fantastic over pre-season. We are all clear on where we need to improve, and for whatever reason we haven't been able to do that. So now we're in this position, and we have to accept it and not dwell on it, and try and come through it for Saturday and for Tuesday.
Brendan Rodgers there, Ryan. Look, we've had, as you can probably imagine, a lot of quite strong responses from fans writing in the comments section. Singing the Blues says Rangers v Celtic Europa League final. Imagine that. That would be a spicy atmosphere. But let me read a few more of the serious ones from Celtic fans. Billy says, this is not an knee-jerk reaction from me. Just to be clear, what the hell is going on at Celtic? Okay, I understand that both have got to be prudent financially, but that display against Kairat was, let's be honest, shocking. Where is the money from last season's Champions League? 18 million for Kuhn, 8 million for Kyogo, going back even further, 25 million for Matt O'Reilly. Kenneth writes in saying, a woeful, clueless performance from Celtic, hardly creating a chance all night and quite easily could have lost the game. A tough task lies in waiting the second leg, and the board can't see that the squad needs serious investment is beyond me. They should hang their heads in shame, because there's every chance it will cost them a place in the Champions League. And just finally, David Beattie writes in saying, Daniel, this has gone beyond the pale. Dermot and his merry band of board are hanging the best manager we've ever had out to dry. He will walk, and who could blame him after this sham of a board have let not only him but the fans down with the refusal to back him. Negligence doesn't cover this. It's time. Sack the board now. I mean, I don't even know how we ended up here, Ryan. Celtic was in such a good place, on and off the pitch, and it all of a sudden kind of feels very toxic now.
This is what happens when you have tens of millions sitting in the bank and you don't spend it. Celtic are happy to cash in on all the top players, like the guys I've just mentioned there, Matt O'Reilly, Nicholas Kuhn, Kyogo, and they just simply don't replace them. And now it's not as if this has just come out of nowhere, this Champions League playoff. It's Celtic essentially the league wrapped up in October last year. So they've had the best part of a year to plan for this. They knew Kyogo was going out the door last summer. He left in January. It was inevitable that Nicholas Kuhn was going to leave in the summer. Everybody knew that in January. He left. But where's the succession plan? There isn't. And it's incredible, like you say, Daniel, that we're sitting here on the 21st of August after the first leg of a Champions League playoff against the lowest ranked team in the competition, and Celtic are in serious risk of crashing out of the competition for, it's staggering. It's mind-blowing. And you can't, the thing is with the fans, this was always going to happen. It was always going to turn toxic. I think they've been, the atmosphere at Celtic Park over the last couple of games has been fine. They haven't turned on the board. They've backed the team. But last night, just midway through the second half, the anxiety levels were going through the roof. And I think it was the Green Brigade who led the choruses of sack the board. And then they turned the screw in Michael Nicholson. And there we are. And Peter Lawwell as well.
Yeah.
And obviously the TV cameras zoomed in at the perfect point. Just a penny for their thoughts at the time. Brendan Rodgers, in my view, has been severely let down by the club. He's made it clear the areas that they've had to strengthen since January. They've been on the lookout for attacking reinforcements since January, and it's 8 months down the line, and they're no further forward with it. He's an elite manager. He's in the final year of his contract. What incentive does Brendan Rodgers have to stay on as manager next season? For me, there's none. He's achieved all he can domestically with Celtic. He's won trebles, he's won doubles, he's won titles, 11 out of the last 13 domestic trophies, I think it is. He came back to make inroads in Europe. He came back to make Celtic part of a fortress in the European stage and make Celtic a force in the continent. They had 4 Champions League home games last season. In the league phase, they were unbeaten in 4 of them. I think they won 3 and drew 1, which is an excellent record. They took Bayern Munich to the final kick of the game, and the knockouts after qualifying for the first time in 12 years was it? So that Celtic team were on the cusp of achieving something special, and it's staggering to be 4 or 5 months later down the line that they're in this condition. It's negligence at the highest level, and the Celtic board there's going to be hell to pay if Celtic don't make history next week by overcoming Kairat Almaty in Kazakhstan, because no Scottish teams ever won in Kazakh soil, so they need to become the first ones to do it. And based on last night's performance and the early evidence of this season, it's looking, I don't know, it's a 50-50 for me. I know Celtic are still going to be heavy favourites, but they've always made life difficult for themselves away from home in Europe, and there's no evidence of success. They're going to turn it around next week. Hopefully they do, but it's going to be a tough order for them.
I think the thing, Ryan, I mean, and again, if you're watching at home, if you're a Celtic fan, or if you're not, get involved in the conversation and let us know what you think. But I think the thing that is frustrating for a lot of fans is that there's no reason for this. Like, why aren't Celtic spending money? Like, why are they constantly lowballing bids that are richer than they've ever been? I mean, you can't tell me that Michael Nicholson and Peter Lawwell enjoyed the stick they were getting last night. I just don't get. I don't understand what the problem is. And I think a lot of fans are the same. It's particularly frustrating because there's no reason for it.
Yeah, I think it just rinse and repeat. For whatever reason, they are reluctant to spend money. And they're a board that's known for being risk adverse, but the total irony of this conversation is that they're gambling with a £40 million jackpot, and it's completely unnecessary. They don't need to. As I say, they could they're on probably track to end this year with £100 million in the bank. Where does that get you? And it's not only that as well. The fans as well must be feeling shortchanged. You've got season ticket prices that have been hiked. I know people are spending £900 for a season ticket.
It's crazy.
I think it was £30 for the ticket last night to get there. I think in previous years it might have been on the season ticket. Your season ticket holders aren't even getting friendlies as part of their package now. There's no benefit to being a season ticket holder now. So that's been wiped out. People are annoyed at that. You saw that obviously people were up in arms about the ticket prices for Newcastle, the Newcastle game.
Yeah.
So already that's created a kind of bit of negativity, a bit of disconnect with the board, even before you talk about transfers. There's endless amount of merchandise. There's more merchandise that's come out this summer than there has been signings.
I know.
Which is crazy. And then you've got the Celtic TV subscriptions. There's no other business in the world where their customers can be treated the way that I think the fans are by football clubs, and in this case Celtic. I think their money's been taken for granted, their loyalty's been taken for granted, and quite, fairly they're up in arms now at the prospect of Europa League football. Celtic have had it quite easy over the last 3 years by getting direct qualification into the Champions League. They've banked that money. They have made inroads, as I said, last season. But now when push comes to shove and you need to negotiate a qualifier, they're just unequipped. They've not got the squad. I think Brendan Rodgers even said last night that this is the weakest squad he's had going into the playoffs, which is unforgivable when you've got the amount of money that Celtic do sitting in that bank. What is the point in letting it pile up? You're not spending it. You're not investing it. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And, I feel sorry for Brendan Rodgers. I've been to just about every press conference this season. And just like the journalists are running out of ways to ask the question, Brendan Rodgers running out of ways to answer it. What is going on with transfers? So he must be left scratching his head as well. He must be fed up with it. In my view, nothing's changed at all since his first time in charge. I think the best window we had was when he first arrived at the club. He signed Scott Sinclair, Kolo Toure, Moussa Dembele. That was probably the smoothest transfer window. But ever since then, it's been chaotic, to be honest. And Rodgers, he could quadruple his wages in Saudi Arabia. He could easily be picked up by the Legia club. He's an elite manager, and Celtic aren't acting in an elite club. They've got world-class basics stamped on the dressing room, but it's anything but. They don't act like, they might think they act like a world-class club, but the evidence suggests that they don't.
Yeah. Well, look, the comments are coming in thick and fast. Paul Savage writes, if Celtic had spent £18 million on 2 wingers and a striker, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Shame on the board. John says the board are clearly not going to back the ambitions of Rodgers. They will not fund any high-quality signings. He'll be away at the end of the season. Lawwell and co that need to be binned. But to be fair, Ryan, and I would be more aligned with your thinking when it comes to Rodgers, there's a lot of people in the comments who actually are kind of pointing the finger of blame at him. Davey says it's the beginning of the end for Brendan. That performance was not on the board. That's on the players and the management. Mark says Brendan has to take the brunt of this. He has the players who should have cakewalked that game. Manager's tactics are beyond poor. Hugh Burns says Brendan has final say in transfers. Fact, he's a part of this and the recruitment team who are clearly not identifying good enough players. On the game itself in isolation last night, Ryan, Celtic, and Brendan Rodgers said this in the lead up to the game, they should have had enough players to win last night. They definitely had enough quality to beat Kairat at home.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it was a flat performance. They weren't at the best by any matter of means. But I think it all comes down to, well, in saying that, there was too many slack passes as well, especially in the first half. James Forrest was guilty of 1 or 2 overcooked balls. Negrin, Callum McGregor, nothing really fell for Celtic in the first half. Adam Maeda, he might be seen as a scapegoat after being hooked at half-time, but in fairness, he wasn't given much ammunition up front. He wasn't given much service. I don't think he even touched the ball inside the Almaty box, but he wasn't given much ammunition up front. So, but yeah, it wasn't good enough just to let the rest of the team in the first half. Yang came on as his replacement in the second half. I think he did inject a wee bit of energy into the team, but when you're relying on Yang to come on and save the day, this is a guy who, with all due respect, was meant to be out the door. If Celtic had brought the signings in, he wouldn't be at the club, at the minute. So you're hanging your hat on Yang to turn the game for you, and he did, as I say, he did make an impact, and fair play to the lad. But it's just a crazy predicament Celtic find themselves in, and it was a kind of mess last night as well. And there were so many positional changes as well, Daniel. I think you look at the end of the game, Liam Scales ended up at left back. Obviously, Alistair Johnson's injury meant that Anthony Ralston had to come on at right back. So there's 2 changes in the full back areas. Then you've got Austin Trusty moving in at centre back. You started off the game with Maeda up front. Then it was Daizen Maeda who got a shot through in the middle, and then it was Shin Yamada who finished the game. It's just Rodgers is obviously, it's a bit of a puzzle at the minute. He's trying to find the best way forward to obviously break the deadlock and get that crucial goal, which would have pushed Celtic closer to that £40 million windfall, but it just didn't happen. Nothing clicked for Celtic. There was 10 minutes added on time at the end of the game, and to be honest, Celtic could still be playing just now, and I don't think they would have scored. It was just that type of night, and it just simply wasn't good enough. But what I will say, Daniel, is I've heard this argument before about the £11 million spent in Engels, the £6 million spent in Austin Trusty. Both those guys were on the bench. Obviously, Maeda get hooked at half time. But there's a transfer committee there. It doesn't all fall in Rodgers' door. You've got a recruitment team who's meant to identify these guys, and then obviously you've got the board to sanctions these deals. I think most people would agree that Celtic paid over the odds for Adam Maeda. They did dilly-dallied over that transfer. Kyogo got injured, I think it was against Hibs last season, and Celtic had no option but to finally push the button. And as a result, they had to pay more. Norwich got a great deal out of it. But at the end of the day, that's probably what, £9 million for a championship striker. That's probably the going rate down there as well. So you essentially get what you pay for. Arne Engels, he was a last-minute signing as well. I know Celtic were in the market for other kind of playmakers. Arne Engels was one of those in the list. A last-minute signing. You sell Matt O'Reilly. Clubs know you've got £25 million plus in the bank. And, again, Celtic have paid £11 million for a player which Brendan Rodgers described as got potential. But you'd expect that. You wouldn't expect Arne Engels to be sitting on the bench for too much longer. I actually think whenever he's come on, I think he's actually done okay this season.
I think he's done well as well, Ryan.
So I think I've always said this. I've always been an Arne Engels trainer. I do think that he will come good for Celtic. And I think obviously Nygren coming in has added a bit of competition, much needed competition. But for me, I know Nygren's getting applauded, but for me, I still think Arne Engels is a better option in there, especially with his set pieces. So yeah, I mean, I get Brendan Rodgers doesn't have a great transfer record, but it doesn't all fall at his door. It doesn't.
We're getting a lot of comments, Ryan, or several anyway. People asking us if we've tried. Mark says, Ryan and Dan, you've tried to get an interview with Nicholson. If not, why not? A couple of people saying that. Charlie says, has the Daily Record reporters approached the Celtic board for their opinion? What happened to investigative journalism? Look, see if we could get Mike Nicholson, Peter Lawwell on the show. I mean, the views would be incredible. The chances of getting to sit down with them at the minute.
The thing is, that you'd be lucky to even get an in-house interview with him. When's the last time that Michael Nicholson or Peter Lawwell or any directors fronted up to Celtic TV and answered the questions which the fans all want to know? As I say, Brendan Rodgers has been a human shield for this board. He really has. He's the one that's having to front up to the transfer issues, and he doesn't know what's going on. And I think the fans, it's getting to this point. It's got to the point now. It's past this point. The fans need to know what's going on. There's got to be better communication by the club. I think the club has grown a bit stale in the boardroom. Even you look at, there just appears to be a complete disconnect. You look at the issues even internally in the stadium. These new barriers going up to with fans causing issues as well. Just unnecessary issues that are just aren't needed. It just seems to be one thing after another. I think people probably recognise that Celtic Park is in dire need of an upgrade as well. You don't even get hot water in toilets at the minute. There was a big survey that went around the season ticket holders last year. I don't know what the outcome was of that. Obviously, I think the Green Brigade, the boys, the Ultras have made have been campaigning for an increased singing section as well. Will that ever come to the fore? I just don't know. I feel as if the whole club, the whole stadium, it just needs to be re-energised. It needs fresh ideas, and and I don't know, are the custodians in charge for all they've run a great business? Are they the guys to take the club forward and go beyond that ceiling and make Celtic a proper Champions League club? I don't know. At the minute, Celtic are looking like they're going to be a Europa League club, so that's your answer.
I should say for everyone watching, we're going to be joined live from Pittodrie in a couple of minutes by the one and only Scott Burns. But before I let you go, Ryan, a couple of other things I want to get your take on Celtic-wise. Where is it? If I can find this. AJSC Tech says Kairat are a poor side. If Celtic lose next week, it's the worst result this century. Look, Armida Bratislava springs to mind right away.
Yeah.
Ross County in the Cup semi-final, the Mowbray season. I mean, that seems a wee bit mad to me, to the worst this century.
Yeah, I mean, for all Kairat, Almaty are, I think they're 315th in UEFA rankings, which is below St Johnstone, which is incredible. It's down to the fact that they've not had much European exposure. They've only had one European adventure in their history. I think it was was it 2020-21 Europa Conference League, where they finished bottom in 2 points. So it wasn't too good. I think there's only one Kazakhstan team that's ever qualified for the Champions League, and that was Astana in 2015-16. So yeah. From this part of the world, we almost turn our noses up at Kazakhstani football. But when you get to this level in the competition, you get to the playoffs, no team can be underestimated. People were walking into the stadium last night predicting 3-4, 5-0, and it quickly became clear after 10-15 minutes that just simply wasn't going to happen. I don't buy into the fact if Celtic were to tumble out next week, it'll be the worst. It'll be the worst in the history in this century. Even they're a decent team. They've got a young lad, a 17-year-old Satpiev, who ironically is going to be out of the game next week after picking up a late booking, showing a bit of inexperience there. So that's a boost for Celtic. But they've got a young boy there that's the talk of Kazakhstan. He's already agreed the deal to go to Chelsea. The big lad in Nielsen up front as well. He was causing havoc, so you could tell that they had good players, good quality players, and they were. Yeah, I think they were probably a cut above Armida, as you say, and some other teams that Celtic have been eliminated by over the years. So, but yeah, at the same time, Celtic should be beating them. They're the lowest ranked team in the competition. It was a dream draw for Celtic, and I think. Yeah, exactly. You couldn't have handpicked a better tie. It should have been wrapped up. It should have been done. The Celtic should have been going over to Kazakhstan with a 2 or 3 goal progression, but they simply just didn't show enough quality in the night. And yeah, the lack of transfer business has been laid bare.
AGSC's pushing me to come up with another result that worse than if they go out next week. Look, maybe you're right, AGSC. Who knows? I mean, Lincoln Redimps, Jinky writes in with that. That was a bad one as well.
Yeah, that's the one.
The thing is, though, is that Mark says it depends. Celtic go out and Rangers somehow make it through. It only takes a dodgy decision. The sending off would be Armageddon. Oh, sorry, that would be Armageddon. Look, I get that, but. I mean, actually, this is the last thing I wanted to get you, Ryan, was a lot of people asking about the rest of the transfer window. I mean, do you think this will prompt the Celtic board now, regardless of the Champions League status, to go out and finally spend a few quid?
Celtic simply can't go into the rest of this season with only Adam Maeda, Shinya Maeda, Johnny Kenny as their strikers, and either side of them, Daiza Maeda, who, by the way, has looked well out of sorts this season. There's obviously, I don't know whether his head's been turned by interest from down south with Brentford.
It doesn't look the same, does it?
Brendan Rodgers alluded to during the week, actually, and I think it was Tuesday, that players are getting paid. While players are getting paid by Celtic, they need to give their all. So you do wonder if a few players' heads have been turned this summer. And Celtic are wanting to, find out where they're going to be playing a European football before deciding on any moves. But yeah, it's unthinkable for Celtic to be going into the season with such a lack of firepower up front. And by the way, you're not just talking up front, so I would agree. We've said this many times, Daniel, you and I. They definitely need 2 wingers, even if they bring in a lone player to cover Jota until January. But even then, I don't think Jota is going to be back fully fit probably until the end of the season. You're going to need at least a year-long loan for a winger. You need a permanent winger in, which obviously Balakwisha seems to be the man. And then you're going to need another striker. But that shopping list has just increased. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers doesn't fancy Inamura. He's made that clear. Defensively, he's not up to it. So you're going to need another left-back to cover for Kieran Tierney, because Liam Scales you can't keep forcing that guy out of position. It's no fair on him. Actually, Liam Scales, I think, gets a hard time from Celtic fans for the most part. But I think again he did okay last night. And yeah, it wasn't a fair push him out of left back. Then obviously Alistair Johnson's injury, which is a big concern because a hamstring tear is painful for anyone who's ever done it. It's one of the most painful things you can experience. And he's going to be out, if that is a hamstring tear, and Brendan Rodgers will hopefully confirm that tomorrow, then yeah, that you're looking at 2-3 months for that, for him to recover from that. So then you've only got Anthony Ralston at right back. So again, it's another right back that's going to be required.
With the best will in the world as well, the drop-off from Johnston to Ralston is very significant.
Ralston's never let the club down. I don't think he has. I think he's a workhorse. He knows his role in the team. This is why he's there. He's there to step up and cover Alistair Johnson if there is any injuries. And he gives his all. But yeah, like you say, I think at the minute, Tierney and Johnson are two of the kind of best fullbacks that Celtic have had in years. I think it's a brilliant duo. So when you're losing the quality of Alistair Johnson, especially getting into these run of games, with obviously Kazakhstan next week, then the small matter of a trip to Ibrox, losing Alistair Johnson's a massive loss. So if he's going to be out the long term, you definitely need cover there. So that's five signings that are going to be required over the next 11 days, Daniel. And the fact that Celtic find themselves in this position, having had all summer to do their business is quite incredible. Would you bank on Celtic getting these signings over the line as well? Yeah, I don't know.
Nope. Not. I mean, look, they're going to sign someone, but 5, that seems a bit unrealistic to me. And again, John in the comments, as you can see on your screen there, says Maeda's had his head turned. He's mentally away already. If you thought last night was virgin and toxic, simply even thinking about selling Maeda at this point was just absolutely unthinkable.
Yeah, I think he's one of the untouchables for Celtic. I think there's a few of them there. You've got Callum McGregor, who's never going to leave the club. You've got Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think when he doesn't play, the defence has been guilty of falling apart at times. And then, obviously, you've got Maeda, who is just the most unique footballer I've ever seen, to be honest. He's a workhorse. I don't think we can spend millions and never be able to replace what he brings to the team. He's been off it. Yeah, I know he scored 33 goals last season, but even probably since about April, I just feel as if he's lacked that. He's lacked that cutting edge up front. Obviously, he missed that chance at Ibrox last season. He then missed the chance in the Scottish Cup final. He missed the chance last night in the dying minutes as well. I made this point a couple of weeks ago to you, Daniel. I don't feel that Maeda is the man that should be leading the line for Celtic this season. I think he's a great option to have there, but his best position's out on the left, and Celtic need a proven goal scorer up there, and that costs money. So down to the Celtic board to get that man.
Jinky says Kairat have knocked out the Slovenian, Slovakian, and Finnish champions in the competition. They're no mugs. Before I let you go, Ryan, does Celtic get through this?
It's on a knife edge. It really is. Going by history, going by the fact that Aberdeen, Scotland, Celtic have never won in Kazakh soil. You say it's going to be a tough ask, but I back all Scottish teams in Europe, so I'm going to go for Celtic to win 1-0. I remember, I think it was maybe 8 years ago, Celtic doing 0-0 with Rosenborg in the first leg, then James Forrest scored the winner on the 1-0 win in Norway in the second leg. So maybe James Forrest will be the hero again.
I hope you're right. We've got a bit more depth in Celtic, so I'm going to make a substitution here. Ryan's going off, and the one and only Scott Burns, live from Pittodrie, coming in. Burnsy, how's it going?
Evening, gents. Yourselves?
Sorry about your wait there. We were doing a little bit of a dissection on the Celtic game last night. Went about a wee bit over time.
Sorry, I know my place.
Good luck to the Dons tonight. I'll catch you later, guys.
Cheers, Ryan. Much appreciated.
Cheers, Jen.
Burnsy, massive game for Aberdeen tonight. Absolutely huge. FCSB, the remnants of Steaua Bucharest. Do you make Aberdeen favourites?
For tonight's game, yeah, I think Aberdeen should be favourites to win the game. Overall, I still think it's very 50-50. But these are the sort of games now where Scottish teams need to start winning, and especially those outside the Big Two. I know the Big Two have had a couple of absolute disastrous results this week, but not with carrying the flag. But I think it's time for other clubs to step up and get some big results. And Hibs have done that already, you know what I mean, taking out Partizan Belgrade. They were unlucky against Midtjylland, and Dun United. I mean, it was a toss a coin, it's penalties against Rapid Vienna. So I think these games now are the ones that Scottish clubs really should start looking to win and start putting coefficient points on the board. Do you know what I mean?
David,
anymore. I mean, Steaua Bucharest are not the European champions. Romanian league's not as strong as the Scottish league, and I know people might argue it's not 1983 either. I get that, but I think we give some of these teams and some of these names too much respect.
Yeah. I agree. David the Don writes in saying Jimmy Tiernan badly needs a result to lift the mood around the club tonight. His league form has been really concerning. Having said that, I think we'll have enough and win 3-1. Aside from Jimmy Tiernan, Burnsy, it's quite a big game for a lot of Aberdeen players. The one I'm looking at is Yengi. I mean, he could do a goal tonight, couldn't he?
Well, the good thing is he got off the mark on Saturday at Morton. I mean,
that's true.
Certainly the first few games, he's been written off by a lot of the fans and a lot of the pundits. You know what I mean? It'll do his confidence about how good to get that goal. I think if he was to score tonight and make an impact tonight, I think he would just kick on again. What I would say is playing as a centre forward for Aberdeen is not a dream position. You know what I mean? There's not somebody that's in there that's going to get a barrel of the chances. He's not going to score 20 or 30 goals a season. It's more like a Steve Clark striker. You're going to have to. You're leading the line. You're making chances. You're taking the defenders out, and you're trying to create space for others. That's what happens with Jimmy Tierlan's team. You know what I mean? So, from that point of view, you've got to be unselfish. And I think Kevin Nisbet obviously scored quite a few goals last season, but a lot of the time, a lot of his work was done outside the box. So it's difficult being a striker for Aberdeen. But I think it's probably the way that Jimmy plays this. Like, it's normally a 4-2-3-1. I do think it's suited for European football. I think that's where it might come to the fore. It looks like quite a lot of the time domestically it comes unstuck, but I think it might work in Europe. I really do.
Burnsy, I'm conscious that you've got a lot of pre-match duties to carry on with. Before I let you go, what's your prediction for tonight?
Well, I'm already in print, so I can't really go back in that. I think Aberdeen will win 3-1 tonight, and hopefully they get a result. Hopefully Hibs get a result, and they can boost the coefficient points. But another thing as well about Jimmy is that we all talk about he's not got a great record in the league. Obviously won that cup, but in knockout competition, he's only lost one game so far as Aberdeen manager.
Very good point.
So, fingers crossed that could continue.
Absolutely. Burnsy, it's always a pleasure having you on the Hotline Live, and I hope it's an absolute cracker for you tonight.
Thanks. All the best.
Thanks, Burnsy. Much appreciated.
Bye.
Scott Burns there at Pittodrie. I think that brings us to the end of Thursday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thank you so much for all the comments. They really are important to us. It's I said last night, a bit cheesy, but it's the heartbeat of the show. So thank you very much. We'll be back on Sunday following Rangers clash with St Mirren. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you can do so then. Thank you very much for watching at home. Have a good weekend. Cheers.